find yourself getting passed by multiple cars, as I mentioned earlier on. So you're off in a very precarious situation, but he often finds himself in these places. He doesn't qualify as well as he races.
Up front, they are getting with Lee Aberdeen and Luca Varani, not very far apart at all here. But I just want to see how Alistair Haig deals with Marcello Kessler coming around the old hairpin.
I would say it's not the best decision they've ever made, just not having done that under the safety car, really.
Yeah, they're taking their pit stop strategies from Ferrari lately or something. What's going on?
In turn one, just too much gas on them, too much feet on the loud pedal, and unfortunately he's dropped him all the way down the order. But Philip Hammer is out in front by an 8.91 seconds. Dan Michael is a wall there, sir. And definitely doesn't want to be hitting that earlier on as well.
Difficult, the understeer is in the dirty air through that final corner because it's such a long corner and you get dragged off into the grass very easily. He'll have the slipstream down in towards the chicane. Peterson was briefly alongside, but that slipstream has saved him and kept him in third.
Yeah, Varani now lost a little bit of time to Aberdeen, about half a second. Peterson is Pike's pushed Morton forward up ahead. He's got out of line. Is now Pike going to have a go at Werrell? Don't push him off. He's in the championship fight. Jack Werrell chasing down Carl Jacklin. Further down, Rob Williams and Chris Barnes.
Sensational run outside line now though for the heavy braking zone. Around the outside goes the Audi R8.
Look how much Miller's caught back into play. Exactly. Miller's still such up. He's left on second and change. All of a sudden Miller's back in play.
On to the back end of Phil Jocelyn. So there's been a lot of movers and shakers in this first 2 laps here for race.
Absolutely serious racing league. Everybody's allowed to have fun. Yeah, and it's all about the entertainment. So I hope everybody is enjoying themselves out there in the chat. We know that Ron is been enjoying himself watching. The Burger King machine's off into the grass a little bit there as they're really bunching up now.
Does he have it?
Medeiros is going to get it.
Haven't got it!
He's on the outside line though, going into the fastest corner on the circuit. Surely this can't work.
Dominic Ligner has got a sensational run outside line now though for the heavy braking zone. Around the outside goes the Audi R8.
Look how much Miller's caught back into play. Exactly. Miller's still start chopper. He's not on second and change. All of a sudden, Miller's back in play.
Can Barry do it? Big Barry's going to do it! Big Barry!
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back once again to the JP Broadcasting YouTube channel. We're here once again, round number 4 of the Sim Racing for Simpletons Formula 3 Championship, and we take to one of the best circuits on the calendar this season. It's, of course, Brands Hatch. The full layout, the full GP loop. We don't, cut straight through when we get to Surtees. We go all the way around the back, straight through Hawthorns, all the way around before we end off at Clark Curve. And, well, it's going to be an absolutely amazing piece of racing action. A mandatory pit stop along the way, roughly 40-ish minutes in length. It'll be myself, Zach Sweeney, Dean Biggles in the commentary booth to talk you through each and every single bit of the action. And let's take a look, actually, at the championship standings coming into today, because it's David Holland on his absolutely incredible run of form. Off the back of 2 victories, of course, sees him take to the championship lead ahead of reigning champion Mackenzie Roon. To be fair, only 7 points back. Then comes Carson Keane and Model East Kiko on her consistent run of form, an average finish inside the top 5. Alexander Rivera, after a couple of absences, rounds off the top 5, with Brian Long, Dan Whitfield, Petter Vedding, Andy Yeager and Robert Ridgway rounding off the top 10. We've had a couple of absences over the course of the season, but we continue on, we press on, and we still have the vital 5 at the top of the championship. Dean, well, another week, another round, and, well, hopefully a lot of action to look forward to as well.
A lot of action around this very, very tricky track, as you'd mentioned. It's like a roller coaster up and down, lots of elevation changes, really catches the drivers off guard. Catch a lot of them during the practice session off guard, the spins, but that's what the practice is for, my friend. Just getting it out of your system, pushing the car to the absolute limits, and then get ready, obviously, for the qualifying session that's underway right now, and then back off a little bit from how much you're pushing. See those times coming down onto the board right now. 16.5. Let's say 16.6 to round it up there from Mod Kiko.
Yeah, Kiko's been really consistent in her run of form. Obviously, last time out the circuit, Gilles Villeneuve wasn't her usual best. She had a couple of mistakes along the way, but still looking very consistent in her pace. And a 16.5 is a fairly respectable lap time. We were looking in practice at around about 16.2 as being relatively quick, maybe breaching yourself into a 16.1, but that was after 50 minutes of rubber being laid down, of the track evolving, the track getting quicker, the drivers feeling in the rhythm, and it's all good being able to do a good lap time when you've got 100 attempts at doing it. In this one, you only get roughly about 3 within the 10-minute time limit.
Riding on board right now, Mackenzie Roon lighting up the timing tables, so I think Model East Kiko's time is about to get smashed. David Holland actually smashes it and breaks into the 16.4s. And I have to imagine right here, Mackenzie Roon, unless he made a mistake in the final sector, should we be able to replace that one? Bang, there it is. 15 club there for Mackenzie.
Boom, sorted. Maybe it wasn't a 16. It was a low 15. That were good times, I think. But Mackenzie Roon, the reigning champion, of course, taking to the top step on qualifying. We're still waiting to see from David Holland on a quick lap. Dan Whitfield gets himself within 0.6 of a second of the pole time and provisionally onto the front row. Here is David Holland, though, chucking his way through Hawthorns. And from experience, Biggles, I have to say, Brands Hatch in a Formula car, particularly a junior Formula car, Formula 4, Formula 3 sort of style, such a great circuit. It flows so nicely, and to hook it up is one of the best feelings ever.
Especially blind corners. Look at this. It's a roller coaster. And you got to enjoy it. Most drivers do enjoy it. As you said, junior car, you want cars to go too fast. Modern day Formula 1 cars just wouldn't be able to throw themselves. They could throw themselves around here, but they'll be throwing themselves into a fence. Let's have a look. Is hogging the inside apron, the straightest line across the line there. Mr. Holland, what will he be able to do? Bingo. Top of the timesheets by 0.3 almost.
Yeah, he is looking very good, David Holland. I mean, he's dominated the last 2 races. Mackenzie Roon gave him a decent fight for the first sort of 10 laps or so of the Circuit Gilles Villeneuve, and then David Holland just ran away with things out in front. He is a driver who will dominate if you give him that opportunity to do so. Mackenzie Roon got quite close in practice. We even saw at one point they matched each other to the exact thousandth of a second. I think it was a 15.240 in the end between the two of them. Looking very, very good, hopefully, for a very competitive race. Daniel Whitfield, of course, we usually see the majority of the Whitfield family tree joining us on the JP Broadcasting YouTube channel, and I'm sure a lot of people at home will be flying in full swing as well. Can already see the likes of Jamie Long at Kurzweil, and obviously the Sim Racer for Simpletons channel as well. Brian Long will be commenting along if he has an abysmal race. You can see there in the bottom of your screen, David Holland once again finding even more time in the first 2 mini sectors, and a little bit slower towards the tail end of the lap, but just going to show there's still more time on the table.
Let's see what the time could be, even though I didn't improve so much on those final sectors. Crosses the line, doesn't look like an improvement though. It's not, to 15.7. You can see how much you have to fight the car around this track. It's not just sit back and coast it. You gotta really fight it, struggle with it, you know. Tame the beast, essentially, of this car. As you can see how much they're really trying to push the track limits.
Yeah, the track limits here are very, very tricky to navigate. The margin for error around Brands Hatch is so incredibly slim that, you know, one small mistake can cost quite a lot. I remember, of course, the Rocket Race Star Formula 4 Esports Competition UK, the girls' side of things. Chloe Grant was dominating in one of the races, and right at the end, literally with 1 lap to go, spun out going through Hawthorne's corner, giving the win to Monica Bolton Ramos and costing herself the grand prize, which was a drive in the British Formula 4 Championship that following year. So don't take it for granted. Make sure that you keep it on the grey stuff, because if you make a mistake, you will definitely know about it here in Brands Hatch. We are towards the tail end of qualifying, which just with about 2.5 minutes left to go, the likes of Kiko, Long, Whitfield and McFarland, Vedding, Caillou, Dutton and Ridgway all completed their lap times. David Holland once again improving once more to a 15.4, which in the span of only a few minutes and a few laps to get back acclimatised to the circuit is very, very respectable. What can Mackenzie Roon do? Powerful to the last sector, but not quite good enough to top David Holland.
No, he got something in there, not enough time to do anything about it. You can see the rest of the drivers currently at the moment putting their final laps in, and there's going to pull off and be done with that one from Anthony. Chris Round with the very McLaren-esque livery, you'd have to say, for sure.
Yes, I would say that's taken a bit of inspiration, just a touch, just a little bit. It's definitely not a carbon copy of the Formula 1 McLaren team, but I don't know. I don't really like the Formula 1 liveries on Formula 3 cars, I'll be honest, and I don't think the car does either, spitting him out as he runs his way in towards Dingle and in towards Sheen Curve. Unfortunately for Chris Round, he has been sent back to the pit lane. We've got Dominic Angelicchio pulling his way into the pit lane, only 10th for him at the end of qualifying. David Holland on his final run pulls his way into the pit lane, and it's pole position for the championship leader.
Getting it job done here at Brands Hatch. You can see the water tank thing, or whatever it's called. I don't know. I've never been to this track. This is your neck of the woods, partner. Be a great track to actually go and watch the race. We should get those grid results up for us a second there with the 12 or 13 drivers that we'll have here this evening in the essentially the brickyard of the United Kingdom motor racing. Don't they still have brick garages there, or?
Yes.
In the pit road?
They do.
Yeah. Old school.
Yeah,
how long's this track been around? It hasn't been around as long as Silverstone, right? But it has been around.
1950 is the early that I can go back to for the circuit. Yeah, that's the first iteration of it with Paddock Hill Bend. It was a loop round, looking a little bit like a boomerang. Loop round through Paddock Hill, going through what is now sort of the Surtees Bend. And in fact, actually, what you did, you went the other way. You went backwards through Clark Curve into Clearways, then down through the Indy circuit. Essentially was what the old old Brands Hatch was, and that's now evolved into its current state, and the one that's been able to master its current state in qualifying. David Holland, championship leader at 1 minute 15.410, sees him take yet another pole position in this championship. His championship rival Mackenzie Roon joins him on row 1, with Model E's Kiko and Brian Long actually up there rounding off row 2. Dan Whitfield rounds off the top 5, and he'll be joined by Seth McFarland in 6th place. Anthony Zeitchen, Chris Round row 4, with Petter Vedding and Dominic Angelicchio the top 10. Guy Kiao and Robert Ridgway round off the top 12, and just in behind a very lonely Luxembourger of Joel Dutton to round off the 13-car strong field that we've got here today. We're about to embark ourselves on 37 laps of amazing action here in Brands Hatch, and Biggles, I can't wait.
We all can't wait. In the chat there, give us a like if you do like the motor racing, and of course if you want to join the SR4S Racing League, all the information's there for the Discord and everything that you need. Just ask if you want that information as the drivers are loading up onto the grid. As you can see, they make their climb up to turn 1. And what did you say, it was a reverse grid? It sounded like Interlagos used to be reversed as well.
Yeah, well, back in the day, they'd be pointing the other way. Knock Hill, funnily enough, what we used to, the track layout that we used to actually, where you go through downhill 1 and 2, quite a few series actually go the other way, so they go backwards, and it sounds unusual, but they also have quite a few grid boxes painted facing the other way because they use it that often. They can sort of they can justify doing it. So yeah, quite a few circuits actually run backwards layouts, or have done in the past. One of them, of course, is Brands Hatch, but we are about to get ourselves underway. Round number 4 of the Sim Racing for Simpletons Formula 3 Championship sees the 2 championship leaders on the front row, and we go in towards turn number 1. It's a slow start in the background, but side by side nearly for the championship leaders as they head their way through turn number 1 for the first time. It's side by side as well, just in the background. Dan Whitfield with a stellar launch up into 3rd place already, catapulting himself up ahead of Brian Long, and I believe it was potentially Model E's Kiko getting a really slow start. Look at Mackenzie Roon trying to go for the move into the inside of Graham Hill Bend. It's thwart off from David Holland, but you can already see a huge mistake there as Chris Round, I think, is as Brian Long actually having a bit of a mistake on the exit of turn 3.
Yep, as he goes a little bit off into the grass, expect to see a little bit of that. Expensive car mowing, well, lawn mowers here this evening, but no change between these 2 drivers. But we'll see whether or not Mackenzie Roon wants to try to take it already, try to maintain the lead of this, try to pull away from the rest of the field, and there's certainly going for it. He could go up the inside here, tucks it behind. Decides not just yet to bring it to David Holland, but certainly great back. And they're starting to break a little bit of a breakaway there to Daniel Whitfield in P3 and Seth McFarlane in P4.
Yeah, well, the danger with David Holland is that in the initial stages, everyone can sort of stay with him. But it's once you get to sort of the half-distance mark that he really starts to stretch his legs and spread his wings and fly away. So Mackenzie Roon needs to make sure he's constantly putting the pressure on and not allowing Holland to bridge a gap, and also Dan Whitfield to sort of get in on the memo and say, yeah, let's not fight too hard. Chris Round trying to go the long way round on Seth McFarland. He's looking to the upside through Paddock Hill Bend, not quite able to, but the up and under is definitely there. As the track levels itself out, you get a ton of grip as it dips back down and up right at that the bottom, the trench of the slope, and you really just get the car to bite back in again. So that up and under really does work quite nicely if you are able to pull it off. Dominic Angelicchio up a place, but well, this is the carnage that ensued on the opening lap. Guy Kiao finding himself into the pit wall.
Oh, that might have been a bit of net code, isn't it? With a tap losing the rear wing. Involved with some of the other cars. We'll go back and look at that one in a second. We'll keep an eye on this action as there's Seth McFarlane trying to hold off Chris Round's McLaren-esque livery for the number 8 machine.
Strong, independent man, Chris Round dubs himself as. I do love that. And fielding the McLaren livery, so not independent enough to have his own livery, but hey ho, we'll leave him to it, whatever he feels is best. And well, to be fair, we can't slate him too much because he's fighting for a podium. Seth McFarland, not the one from Family Guy we have established on a number of occasions, but he is running in one of his best results to date, up there in 3rd place. Dan Whitfield unfortunately falling down to 7th, sees him having a bit of a fight with Petter Vedding. But in the opening stages, it is David Holland that's got a firm grasp on that lead, setting the pace with a 16.4 in the early stages of this race.
Dominic Angelicchio has gone off the wrong stuff, and that's gone out into the grass somewhere there, my friend. That's a little bit of a spitter route. Yep. Well, I was going to say to the grass. Pretty much everything's going to go into the grass around here if you go off. And has to wait till the cars, a couple of cars through, gets back on track. Still no changes here currently at the moment, but Chris Round trying to bring it. It's actually bringing, if anything, Brian Long into play once again. That's what happens when these battles occur, isn't it? Like, it gets that little slipstream effect, and bingo. Here's the boss man on your tailpipe.
Yeah, don't mess up with Brian Long sniffing up behind you. You can see fielding the very green, couple of gradients of green. You've got sort of the normal green, the lime green, and then the white, fielding the SR4S livery on his very striking Formula 3 machine. He's on the back of Chris Round, and well, Brian Long in a fight for the podium. What year is this? What timeline is this? What alternate universe is this? He runs his way through Clark Curve, but it's a long road ahead. He's still got 2 places to make up. Another fastest lap for David Holland, a 15.7, and only a 15.9 is what Mackenzie Roon can muster up. That gap is bridging itself further and further away. It's hovering around 7/10 of a second. Mackenzie Roon, if he doesn't find a bit more pace, is in trouble of allowing Holland to slip through his fingers.
Absolutely is. So here's Mod. She must have been involved in that earlier accident because she's on a fight back charge, and there it is. So she gets past Mr. Dutton, Joel Dutton, and makes her way back up into P9. She started a little bit further up. I'll have a look what happened to Mod. So she's had an accident. Actually, she's come back off track. So this is what's happened to Mod. That's a part of that first. She goes spinning around there at the back and just making itself difficult. Well, difficult for herself once again with her qualifying, having to battle from the back of the field coming through. And of course, in that case, isn't it, my friend Zachary, when there's accidents up the road, not too many places you can go. Oh!
Ah!
That's Brian around, isn't it?
No, he's carried on. It's Seth MacFarlane that's had an issue off the exit of Sheen Curve. Very easily done. The blind apex right-hander. You chuck it through uphill. Don't rejoin onto the racing line. But I suppose you don't really have much choices. Oh, joining into the path of Yoel Dutton. We'll take a look. Going through Westfield and then obviously into Sheen Curve. Just over the curb too much. That's not the mistake I expected to see. A very interesting one in all fairness. Flips it back round and, well, unfortunately losing out on a fight for the podium. Down to 9th place and showing how brutal Brands Hatch is if you let it bite back.
It is. I mean, that's the place at the moment. That's the corner you want to get your little fold-out chair and sit and watch the races. You can see Brian out onto the grass. He's trying to camouflage his car out there, the green machine. It is so complicated of a track as you get to navigate, and that's the corner that's been catching everybody off, I know, because Chopper Cam can't even catch them because the trees are in the way.
Yeah, it's difficult when you're trying to fly a helicopter, albeit virtual, through the trees here in Kent, but you've got to manage somehow. You've got to have the camera somewhere and try and catch the cars if and when you can. David Holland for Delta Sport U4K leading the way by now 1.1 seconds ahead of Mackenzie Roon. Roon unfortunately not being able to bridge the gap as much as he did have liked, and David Holland is now in his hammer time zone. This is exactly the conditions he thrives in. Away from trouble, away from pressure, and now is able to, hopefully for him, bridge the gap bit by bit and, well, add to yet another tally to his already quite impressive tally of 2 wins.
Mackenzie Roon's got to get them off race start, doesn't he? Because when it seems to be, and we've tried to do those commentators' curses before, as you call it.
Nope.
You don't call it, but to David, and it doesn't seem to be working. And Mackenzie just, as you said, you've heard before in the interviews, Mackenzie's like, you know, he knows that David's got some pace. He's like, I don't know what to do. David gets up the road. It's very, very difficult for me to try to get past him. So got to get this, do it earlier, I say. Let's go back to the green flag race. Let's go back to the green start of the race. And let's have a look at the race start there from Mackenzie. So he's on the inside. Who was that? The driver that bogged down off there you saw in the P3. And there it is. So David Holland leading the race there, covered him off there and made sure he shut the door. And Mackenzie Roon of having any chance of getting an overtake done early.
Yeah, not quite able to. Unlike his run going into turn number 1 at Circuit Gilles Villeneuve, where he was able to catapult himself ahead of the championship leader. But you could see there the slow start from Modelise Kiko. For whatever reason, she just couldn't quite get the car up to speed. I think maybe too high in the revs, too quick dropping the clutch, and the car just spun the rear wheels up and just didn't move. You can see on the initial go, she puts her foot down, rear wheels spin, and then they're continuing to spin. Cold tyres definitely, but just all over the place really. No one able to predict where she's going to go. And yeah, an unfortunate start, but she's back up to speed now. She's continue on, the tyres up to temperature, she's in her zone, and now she's got Robert Ridgway for company. Inside or outside for Graham Hill. She goes to the outside and sweeps her way the long way around. Up into 7th place. Next up is the Norwegian of Petter Vedding.
Like Robert didn't want too much of a fight up on that one for the Atomic Racing team. He'll sit there currently in P8. He's gained 4 positions in this race, so he's made the positive gain. Chris still can't find a way around. This is Brian. Chris Round is the one that's leading there of Brian Round. Chris has gained 5 positions, so really making some moves, you have to say, for the strong independent man.
He is a very strong independent man, having a strong, not so independent race. He's got Brian Long for company, who, again, the boss man breathing down your neck. Not the most fun of things, let's put it that way, but is he going to go for a move into Paddock Hill Bend? Chris Round forced to go defensive, trying to cover off his bases. You can see how early Brian Long was, trying to maybe go for the up and under. Up the hill now as we run our way in towards the hairpin type corner here at Druids Bend, as you run your way back downhill in towards Graham Hill. To be fair, an interesting corner on the circuit. It's quite fun when you get it right. Downhill sweeper, trying to get the car rotated. A lot of fun. Same here for Surtees, probably my least favourite corner on the circuit, purely because it's the one I spun at when I came to race here for the Rocket Racing Formula 4 Esports Competition UK. After getting involved in a crash, after moving my way up into 3rd place, to then get tagged around, spun, and then spin again at Surtees. So that's why I don't quite like Surtees, but it's a fun corner nonetheless. Through Hawthorns Bend after the long back straight, and now through into Westfield Bend, Dingledale, the most interestingly named corner, and then the blind apex right-hander here at Sheen. You've got to hit an apex quite nicely, otherwise the car really won't grip, and you run the risk of completely understeering your way into oblivion.
What was the league that you said you had the problem with Druids with?
The Rocket Racing Star Formula 4 Esports Competition.
Say that again 5 times. Oh, stuff.
Oh, no thanks. No, thank you.
That's what
it's a long-winded one.
Yeah, here we go. Well, Brian has not a long time. Well, he's got a bit of time on his side, hasn't he? Here it is. Great exit. Great exit. Now you have to fully commit to it, and I think at the moment Chris Ram will have to say, all right, you got me on that one, buddy. But I'm still here, and I ain't going anywhere. Good job. Good overtake. We have to go back and have a look at the replay of that one, because when you do get a good passing play done, then you get rewarded with a replay. Here it is, just there. Far better exit, isn't it, Zach? As we lost Zach again.
Do you know what?
Yeah.
It's because I forgot to press unmute again. Honestly, I'm not quite used to having a headset microphone. Obviously, when I did the Formula E Accelerate a couple of weeks ago for the finale in London, they gave us headset microphones, and I've always known they'd be better. I didn't quite know how much better and how much I preferred them. So as soon as I got home, I was like, you know what? I'm going to invest. I'm going to get myself a headset microphone, and looking to invest in a 4th place potentially as Chris Round down Whitfield trying to recover from a mistake earlier on. But yeah, I was like, I want a headset microphone. And now I can sort of do it without having to have push to talk or anything, but it means if I want to get a drink, I've got to mute myself. Otherwise, you will hear my luscious gulps of my Coke Zero.
That's what's a part of the action, mate. Oh, here we go. Yeah, it's definitely a part of it, the experience, so that you feel like you are sitting in the casting
And then
booth.
I forget to press unmute, which doesn't help. So,
yeah,
ups and downs.
I know the feeling, my friend. Does Daniel know the feeling of getting an overtake done? Absolutely. Where is the Dan's support, the family out there? You know, that gives you an extra 110 for at least
A family member.
when your fan boosts button on your steering wheel.
Yeah, thankfully Formula E's gotten rid of that, actually. That's not a nice gimmick. Popularity contest. I've never liked fan boosts. Just, why would you let the general public influence a race? Doesn't make any sense. Attack mode I love. I love the idea of attack mode.
They do influence a race, but races currently at the moment, because they sell out tickets to stadiums and seats and stuff like that, which of course puts money into the sport, which of course changes the sport. So without the fans, there is none. Sorry, that's how I have to put it.
Yeah,
So
that's fair.
if nobody watched, for example, Formula 1 or Formula E, then they'd cancel the series and pack everybody to go home. So It is definitely.
Yeah, but they don't influence the race results themselves. No. They don't tell the drivers how to drive. They don't give them extra power, or at least they shouldn't. They used to. An interesting gimmick, but didn't quite work out. Again, as I say, I like the idea of attack mode. Yeah. Model E's Kiko likes the idea of going the long way around, going through Clark Curve, and she done exactly that, moving her way back through the field after a very slow and tentative start, up now into 6th place, which is usual territory for her. Yoel Dutton a little bit wide on the exit of Hawthorne's, nearly chopping off the nose of that might have been Angelico or McFarlane just ahead of him, and, well, that was very close and probably very scary for the driver behind.
What a save. Great save. So 11 of 37. And this is the closest battle. So Mackenzie Rune's dropped about 3.4 seconds now, but behind David Holland. And then you have that big gap there to boss man Brian, who just slipped himself in that P3 position. Has a bit of work to keep these two drivers behind him, as well as try to catch up to Mackenzie Rune. It's going to be a tall order. And don't forget, Mondelez Kiko, she's going to be powering her way through the field, as you just saw with some recent overtakes. She's got about 8 seconds to try to shave up the road there to catch Mr. Daniel.
Yeah, it's going to be tricky because 8 seconds here at Brands Hatch is a tough ask. She's going to be hoping for Dan Whitfield for himself to make a mistake to then... to bring that gap down a little bit, maybe Chris round 2 to move her up into 4th place. We have got Lucy Whitfield, Dan's sister, in the YouTube chat. We've not quite got Susan and I think he is either his fiancée or his wife or his girlfriend, his partner in crime, I think. They're all going to be hoping that he doesn't mess up and going to be cheering him on for a good result. Definitely the good luck charms. And, well, it's nice to see that the family is so involved in cheering him on here for the Sim Racing for Simpletons Formula 3 Championship. I don't know if he races in anything else, and if he does, I hope they do show some similar support over in them ones as well, because he's a phenomenal driver, is Dan Whitfield, and, well, he is demonstrating said prowess here today in pursuit of round and long.
He's
gone round, and Whitfield's followed him, and he's gone sideways going at a Sheen curve. He spun it round, and no, that's not on me. Not my problem. He's just had a skill issue. Absolutely not. Don't rejoin him there.
You were talking about it.
He's fine. He's no, not my problem. I'm sorry. Daniel Whitfield's family, the Whitfields, I'm probably not going to get an invite to your dinner table. It's not my problem. He's just had a skill issue. As I say, bad driving. Not my problem.
So who was that? Who was up the road? It was Chris too, right? That went off a little bit. And how come Chris actually spun when it was Daniel first? Did he see Daniel in his mirror spinning and say, I have to spin as well too?
No, I think Whitfield just had tunnel vision. Obviously, he's looking at the car, looking for a target. And yeah, you can see onto the grass there. Whitfield then follows him. Thankfully, somehow Round catches it. Whitfield doesn't. And that's the trouble of tunnel vision, is that you follow the exact movements of the car in front. And Shayla's now saying it's my fault. No, it's not. Because it's not my problem. Get the tinfoil hats off.
There.
That's what he just done. He went onto the grass and off he goes. In a bit, mate. Not my problem. I don't have magic voices, unfortunately. If I did, David Holland would crash out in the next 10 seconds. Will he? No, he won't. Will he? He'll suddenly have a 5-second slowdown penalty.
You said this last time, and it didn't happen.
Look, we're following him. Is he going to do it? No, of course he's not. Do you know why? Because it's not real.
So
see, let's just wait.
Obviously, Zach did not believe in Santa Claus or the Tooth Fairy when.
Shh, they're real. I'm still a child, yeah, Biggles. Okay. Hang on. All right.
So just like that's now just to explain everybody real quick about how that happens as a race driver, like what you just saw there. That of course, unfortunately for Daniel, didn't pan out as well as it did for Chris Round, but because because you're basically following the driver's car itself and not your own racing line that you do that?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so as a driver, you'll be looking ahead. Obviously, naturally, as a driver, say you're on a straight and the next corner is a right-hander, you'll be looking slightly to the right at the next apex. But when you're chasing a car, your focus will be exactly on the rear wing of Chris Long. So as you go up into Dingle Dell, you'll be looking, and obviously you'll be following the track. You'll have the instinct of when to turn in. But because you're focusing so far ahead, and then he just sort of follows the same trajectory, the same line, and unfortunately then clips the grass and makes a similar mistake. And, well, unlike Chris Round, he wasn't quite able to catch it in time. So, yeah, Daniel Whitfield Maybe needs some more porridge in the morning or some more practice around Brands Hatch, but certainly not different commentators in the booth. Petter Wedding able to get himself up ahead now into 6th place because of said mistake. We are approaching halfway through. Also, I say this incredibly bluntly, I've got nothing against Daniel Whitfield. I think he's a fantastic driver. I love the fact his family come and support him. Again, he just made a mistake. It's as simple as that. I'm just honest. I don't like to sugarcoat things. Petter Wedding, of course, from Norway, as I say, moving his way up into 6th place, but being chased down by Robert Ridgway. Only 1.7 seconds between the two of them, and nearly already halfway through this race.
We go back to the race replay of Mod here, and this is when she gets the green light to go, and that's where the car doesn't go. And look, she just has to correct because the rear end's slipping so much. Still in first gear, you could see, and then revs it up, and then second, the rear end's still slipping. So I wonder if she should have upshifted a little bit more there. She's just fighting with the rear end of the car. That's so angry right now. Upshift there so you drop your revs down because, of course, you got too much wheel spin. You can already see there's a damaged rear wing there of one of the drivers, and at this point she just goes around. But she is fighting her way back up, currently in P5. Just like that. That's your race start. Let's have a look. Actually, we go back and have a look at the difference. While we have a bit of a gap, a breather in the race, at Mackenzie Roon's start. So here he is here. Keep an eye on the steering wheel. Let's see if we can kind of get a better idea of the steering wheel. Here it is. So there you can see first gear, probably just increasing the throttle a little bit, the rear slipping on the car. Get it. See, it doesn't go full revs. Drops at about 3/4. Doesn't show you the actual RPM. It does actually about 7K or whatever. And they're clicking it. So you're short shifting a lot more so that you're reducing the wheel spin. If I'm not mistaken there, Zachary, it shows you're a race driver.
Well, not really. But yeah, basically, the RPMs is the revolutions per minute. That's how much the crankshaft, the thing that turns the pistons in the engine, that's how fast it's spinning per minute. And then the faster that spins, the faster the flywheel spins, the thing that crankshaft is connected to. The flywheel then spins the gearbox, and then the gearbox then turns the drive shaft, which powers the rear view mirror. Rear view tires, I should say. No idea where that came from. I'm incredibly sorry. Yeah, the drive shaft then spins the rear tires, and the faster the drive shaft spins, the faster the rear tires spin. So if your RPMs are necessarily too high, especially at a point of low gear where you've got high torque, the RPMs are high, the torque is high, therefore the rotation is quite high, and if you're spinning up the wheels, you're just not going to go anywhere. It's like trying to run really quickly while you're on ice. You're just not going to move. You're going to slip, you're going to go sideways, and you're probably going to fall on your bum as well. And that's pretty much what happened. Well, what will happen if you release the clutch too quickly, if you build up the revs too quickly in a car with high power. So Mackenzie Roon was trying to short shift to limit the RPMs, therefore limit the torque, and therefore limit the stress on the rear tyres. You can see David Holland here. He gets the car up to a nice high RPM, so much so that when he does drop the clutch, the engine is still revving high enough and it's not bogging down. But as he climbs up, he didn't go higher than 6.5k RPM through gear 1. And then as he builds up the speed, builds up the traction, builds up the confidence, he then puts his foot down a little bit more because he can trust that the car will stick. A little bit of a mistake running wide, naturally because of cold tyres, but yeah, nothing major, and a great way to start the race for David Holland.
Excellent. And that's just a great way to explain it, of course, for the Whitfield family that are out there. Of course, we got Lucy, we got Shayla, and Susan. Speaking of Mr. Daniel, he's caught up in the back there of Seth MacFarlane's car at the moment after Daniel had that commentator's curse thrown to him from Zachary.
Nope. Absolutely not. Again, I will hold that to my grave. I will fight this mountain. Similar to, you've got your push to DRS. James has got blue flags. I've got the lack of commentator's curse. There we go. We've all got our little opinions.
Anthony's unfortunately had a crash here.
I haven't spoken about him once, by the way.
No, we go full speed
Just
on
saying.
this one actually because. Let's have a look. See down, hit the grass.
Same mistake as everyone else, but what he's done is pressed both pedals at the same time there. He'd have pressed the brake, pressed the throttle, and what it does is it effectively freezes the car. It doesn't take a screenshot. It effectively freezes the car and stops it from rotating. It just slows it down and skates laterally. and that's pretty much what he did to try and stop himself from going into the barrier. Guy Kiao didn't quite have the same luxury of not sending his way towards the barrier, and he finds himself back into the pit lane. Seth MacFarlane has now got Daniel Whitfield for company, and let's see if Whitfield can make amends for his mistake earlier on and move his way back up into 8th place.
He's certainly going to try, and it's going to keep us entertained because it's the closest battle you're going to see currently on track. You see just how much the car's sliding. See how he's fighting it in the corner? You want to adjust it a little bit. You're kind of trying to turn the car a little bit to the left, but at the same time, the car's trying to slide the rear end. You could feel it. Just, I mean, look at that. Full steering almost completely to the right, and the car's still hugging. And look at that. He's had to lift off big times. He got caught out at the braking point. Steph did lift off a lot earlier, and Daniel luckily did react in time. Of course, you're so close to these cars, as you can see there on your left-hand side. You're within half a second here, so you got to react very, very quickly to see, all right, if he's going braking a little earlier and going a little bit slow in the corner, take about 1/10 out of that just for your brain to acknowledge it, and then you have to react in about another 1/10 to 2/10. So that's how quick it is at this level of racing.
It is, yeah. You see Formula 1 drivers and their reaction times. You see them doing the reaction time test where the lights come up and they tap it as quick as they can. Chris Round is going to have to react to go the long way round. Brian Long trying to hold firm, but peeling his way into the pit lane on lap 20 of 37 for a quick splash and dash. So coming in early allows Chris Round to go the long way and get himself into a provisional 3rd place, where they'll emerge after the pit lane sequence. We'll find out in a few moments' time. But Brian Long kick-starting that mandatory stop cycle here on lap 20 of 37. Dan Whitfield still behind Seth MacFarlane, but for how much longer? The Englishman searches for a gap, close under braking, and a bit of a twitch there. I think overestimating how much speed, or underestimating how much speed he was carrying into the braking zone.
Let's have a look from his point of view. So this is what he's looking at in his cockpit. He's either got, you can tell me out there for the family if he's using VR, if he's actually just driving with a monitor. Some of the drivers use VR, so either way, he's going to be looking at this. Oh, and there's an overcorrection. That's on me. That one. Hopefully it doesn't get
what I did.
Stuck, because sometimes when the middle of the car, of course, the underbelly, the plank, gets caught on those high chicanes sometimes, and therefore it lifts the car up essentially, and so you don't have the rear wheels even touching.
Rear mirrors.
Touching the grass, and therefore you have to actually tow it back to the pit road. That does happen quite a bit, depending on where you do beach it, essentially. Yeah,
well, you see plenty of times, actually. I remember Shayla's just said it's just a monitor, so thank you. So no VR headset, but I remember a clip, I think it was Lewis Hamilton at Sochi in 2020, maybe 2021. And he went over one of the sausage curbs, and the floor lifted up all 4 tyres, and he basically Tony Hawked it across the sausage curb. And that's what happens, because the tyres are the only bit of the car that should be touching the road. They're the only contact patch between car and track. So as soon as you lift them up, the car it can't do anything. It can't turn because the tyres aren't there to turn. It can't drive because the tyres aren't there to drive it. You just have to hope that you've got enough speed to get you off that lip. And if you don't, you've got to hope that you can rock the car in a position where it might just grab a little bit and send you off. Otherwise, as Dean said, yeah, it's a one-way ticket back to the pit lane. And then you might be able to repair any damage, or you might just feel like you need to give up and go for the walk of shame after beaching yourself on a curb. Lap 22 of 37, and David Holland having a firm grip on this race. To be fair to Mackenzie Roon, only 3 seconds back, which does still put a little bit of pressure onto David Holland, because 3 seconds is not a comfortable margin. Once more mistake, and Mackenzie Roon is right back on him.
David is pushing this. You can see how much he's pushing the car. It's sliding a lot more than what it is. Now, we know that this man before has put in the fastest laps late into a race as well, too. So clearly he's got more pace as it comes along. But he had a moment, he spoke to us last week, remember, when we saw you had a little bit brushed against the wall, and he said you almost lost it the last lap. And he's pushing like now, perhaps to cover off any possible mistakes when he has to go for the mandatory pit stop to Mackenzie Roon. It's interesting to see how he's going that, because maybe he's starting to feel that Mackenzie Roon could do something about this, an undercut or an overcut in pit road. And 2, you don't want to be making a mistake in pit road. You certainly don't want to be speeding in the pit. Not going to go in now because there's your pit lane entrance right there. So we'll have to see how that pans out, my friend. Further back, here's Robert on the back of Peter Heaving. Peter Vending, sorry.
Vedding, I think.
Vedding. He told us in the interview on time.
Did he?
Yes, he did.
Fair enough.
Maybe I'm just...
I can't remember him saying it.
Oh,
I don't know. I think I whacked it into Google Translate and just went with that.
Oh, I think he did.
And hope that the H was silent, because we had Darragh Thacker with us a couple of weeks ago when we went to Suzuka. Brilliant commentator, and he kind of does know what he's talking about when it comes to pronunciations as well. Here is Vedding into the pit lane to take his mandatory pit stop, and Darragh, yeah, he took French for A level, so he definitely knows when it comes to foreign pronunciations. And he knows when things are different. Very clever person, and just over a year older than me. So we're both the young boys of the JPB family. Peter Vedding stops and goes again. All that's needed is a small splash and dash. No tyres changed, nothing like that. Top up the fuel, and you go again. But something even as trivial as just stopping in the pit lane for 3 seconds worth of fuel can be life or death when it comes to races like this. Because, as you say, one small incursion in terms of the speed limit, and boom, penalty. You stop too soon, too late, the mechanics won't touch the car. They can't. You then have to realise that the car isn't working. You then have to reverse and then stop again and then wait for it to do it. And then if you have got it right, happy days, you've only lost a little bit of time. If you haven't, you then need to reset and go again. And that all adds time. So even something as small as stopping in your pit box could be quite decisive of this race.
That's why you see mistakes done in real world and in the virtual world for sure. Absolutely, you got to get it right. The good thing about the simulations is that they do simulate that as much as they can, because you are talking once again about seconds for pit stops, and seconds are currently what are dividing the top two, at least, with 3 almost to 4 seconds. So you lose 1 or 2 of those seconds, as David Holland, even with that comfortable lead he has right now, and all of a sudden he could be looking behind Mackenzie Roone's car once they clear their pit stops, which they still need to do. As you can see, the top 6, as well as Daniel in P8, as well as Mr. Dominic Angelicello. What else made the pit stops? 2 of the cars are in pit stops for some repairs at the moment. Both Joel and Guy getting some repairs. I was thinking, do you see what happened with Joel's car? What happened with Guy? But that's a heavy impact there from Guy. We didn't see that. Joel is out. Can't see Joel anyway. Looks like he's out. Anyway. Person who's not out is this Ben. David Holland, leading the race on lap 25.
Yeah, running really, really nicely. Again, only 3.5 seconds clear of Mackenzie Roone, who has kept him honest. Only a couple of tenths of a swing here and there. So he's definitely not had a bad race as Mackenzie Roone, but as soon as Holland left the slipstream range, he has built a nice little gap for himself, and into the final 12 laps of this race is looking fairly comfortable in order to seal yet another victory. I don't think he showed up to round number 1 at Zolder, but has since round 2 won every single one of his races. So Mackenzie Roone has got his work cut out for him if he wants to seal yet another championship, because again, that battling from David Holland is mighty, and no one has since been able to topple him. He's just been head and shoulders above the rest.
Just checking the active suspension on there, make sure it's all legal. As you can see, this fantastic camera angle that we have. That's more for the engineers to sit down the pit wall, and that looks like it's almost an off-track excursion. I had to get back to the main camera to see that. Just a little bit of a heart and throat moment. Has it cost him any time? 3.4 seconds? Maybe I'm just seeing things.
Maybe so. Wouldn't put it past you at all, Biggles.
You want to ride on? We'll ride in the cockpit for a little bit. Just have a listen. So that just want to listen to the car here, so you get an idea of how it sounds. There we have it. So I won't pause it too long, so you do think there are still commentators here. We are still with you. You hear the scrubbing of the tyres. There's a couple of little key secrets that you have to listen to in the car, isn't it? Because obviously in a racing sim, you don't have that full gravity sensation feel of sliding and stuff like that. There's key elements in the racing sims to listen to it. You can hear the scrubbing of the tyres. You can feel it, obviously, in the force feedback in the steering wheel and with the pedals, depending on the equipment that they have. Maybe he's just sitting on a controller at the moment, using that with the force feedback and the control, but really exploring the track limits is Mr. David. And speaking of which, here comes Mod. And she's now caught the tailpipe of Chris Round.
Yeah, she's done a brilliant job, again, despite the fact that a lot of things have been against her in this race. She's now fighting away within a second of a podium place. Neither of these two have stopped yet, which is something to note, which means they're in a direct fight, I would say, with Brian Long, who has taken a stop, was one of the first people to actually come into the pit lane, which means that he'll be, on average, running a slightly higher average of fuel weight-wise than everyone else, because he topped up for the full race and then ran slightly shorter and then topped up to the end of the race. So he is actually running slightly higher fuel on average than everyone else, which isn't going to help him too much, but his pace has definitely not been something to shy away from. That last lap was 16.5 compared to a 17.7 for Long versus Round, which should mean that Brian Long is going to be fairly comfortable in rejoining this race ahead and on to the podium. But with still about 9 laps left to go, there are still plenty of things to unpack. Closer to 10, actually, because David Holland has only just started the 27th lap, or the 28th lap, I should say, just completed the 27th lap. So plenty of action still to come, and still potentially some changes to be made as well.
Mod is pushing, going over the grass a little bit, the rear end sliding out, so she's giving it everything she got to catch up. Don't worry about that DRS. If you want to talk about all that DRS, just tune in to the W12 F1 series that we had earlier. We were broadcasting for 10 to go, as you mentioned, Zach, and 6 of those drivers, 6, 7, 8 actually, those drivers still to make a mandatory pit stop. It's like the splash and dash that you mentioned. And where will Brian Long come back out, of course, after those other drivers have made their pit stops? Let's have a look at the gap to leader. That'll give you a bit of an indication, my friend, of that. If you can do your mathematics figuring out. And there's Mr. Holland going in the pit lane right on cue, almost.
Here he comes. Mackenzie Roon will take the lead of the race, but probably not for very long. He continues on for a lap extra on to 29, so this will be the only lap that David Holland doesn't lead unless Mackenzie Roon comes in on this lap and Holland is able to re-overtake him. But he's led, he's stopped, he's out again in the span of 4.5 seconds stationary time for David Holland. He's back out on track, 14 seconds back on Mackenzie Roon. And, well, if Roon wants any chance of winning this race, he needs to move on with it now. Chris Round able to continue on for yet another lap as well. Modelese Kiko as well, just in behind in pursuit of the strong independent man. Mackenzie Roon now re-inheriting the race lead, or I suppose actually inheriting the race lead for the first time. He's not even touched at this race so far. It's been David Holland since the start of the 4th round of the Sim Racing for Simpletons Formula 3 Championship. Here, of course, in Brands Hatch. Seth MacFarlane into the pit lane as well. Same too with Daniel Whitfield. So Mackenzie Roon and the likes of Chris Round, Modelese Kiko, Robert Ridgway as well, making some good time on their fuel tanks, able to stretch it quite far into this race.
Mackenzie, yeah, absolutely correct on this one. Look at Mackenzie at the moment. He's not pushing it. I'm looking at it, and he's staying off the obviously off the grass. But see that? Inside the white lines, not throwing the car right out, exploring the track limits. Mackenzie Roon's just bringing it. What's the last time Mackenzie Roon just got? He just had a 15.98. So that's good time. Certainly a very good time. He's got to be doing these laps of all laps right now to try this different strategy to see if he can bring it to Mr. Holland. We'll give you Mr. Holland's correct lap times because we can't do that yet because he's essentially on the out lap from the pit stop. And we'll see whether or not this driver up the road there is showing the blue flag, which I believe it is Daniel. Chris Round goes and pit stops. So, yeah, will Daniel get out of the way? It is Dan, isn't it? Yes, it is.
Mackenzie Roon, what can he do relative to David Holland? I mean, he's been able to open the gap up a little bit and therefore close the gap essentially to David Holland. But there's not long left in this race, and not only does he have to catch up, he also has to pass the championship leader on track. Daniel Whitfield running wide. Not actually, oh my goodness me, into the barrier. That is Daniel Whitfield off the road once again, going in towards the penultimate corner here at Stirling's. And we'll take a look as to what has happened. Well, again, running wide, rear wheel onto the grass, all 4 wheels off the road, losing the car as he rejoins and nearly into the side of Mackenzie Room.
I wonder if he was just trying to get out of the way a little bit. I've seen that before with drivers. It was actually unfortunate for one of the races. So there's Mackenzie Roon in now. There's David Holland straight past. Mackenzie Roon comes out of the pit road. So look at that. David Holland sets the fastest lap. So he's certainly covered off that late attack there from Mackenzie Roon. So the pit stops are there. So that's all you need to do, David, getting it done, isn't it? That's just the reminiscence of how you do it. That's Schumacher days used to, back in Formula 1, didn't it? Schumacher used to put in some of the quickest laps when it was around the pit stop times, and that's the reason why the man won many championships for Ferrari. On top of the fact that he had a great car. Still.
Oh, of course, yeah. It's a combination of the two, though. You can drive a slow car fast, you can drive a fast car slow, but you need to drive a fast car fast in order to win championships. And that's exactly what the likes of Max Verstappen, Lewis Hamilton, Michael Schumacher, all of the greats have managed to do in their road to becoming champions. And, well, David Holland, albeit this being a spec series, has tuned up his car to the best of his ability. Actually, no, I think this is a fixed setup series as well. So he's just driven the car as best as he possibly can and, well, driven it better than almost everyone else on the field, if not everyone on the field. He's won every single race so far. Zolder, Suzuka, CGV, and now potentially Brands Hatch as well. Seth MacFarlane locking the rears a little bit, going in too early to the paddock hill, tapping the rear end of his car, denting the rear wing a little bit, but it's still attached, which is always a good thing.
Yeah, he needed a little bit of downforce and seat, so Seth MacFarlane will go into the pit road actually get that repaired there for the second time this evening. Here comes Brian. The boss man, they've made their pit stops, so whether or not they'll be able to jump Robert Ridgway, who's in the pit road right now, and Mod. So let's hope they're going in. Keep an eye on that track map. So Mod was in P3. Mod's in and out. There's Robert. Where's Mod coming out now? And Chris Round goes around the outside there. And what about Brian? No. But Mod's right in the mix of this battle, so this is going to be very, very exciting. You have to say, that was a pretty good pit stop there from Mod, isn't it? With the charge back through the field. She's now gained that position back from Ryan. And can get a move on with it. Just got Chris Round up the road, so... If you thought that this race was starting to get a little bit chilled, well, it's spicing up right now, that's for sure. Heating it up here in United Kingdom of Brands Hatch.
Yeah, it's been a brilliant race, and now we have a brilliant finale in the fight for the podium. Round, Kiko, Long, all battling away for their first ever podium, I think, both this season, maybe in SR4S history as well. Kiko certainly searching. Actually, no, she did get a podium. I think it was last season at Donington she managed to get herself up there. But certainly this season, looking for a way through. Brian Long also in pursuit, because it's not too often that we see Brian Long take to the 3 steps of the podium, and to be fair, it's not too often that we see him this far into the race either. And now he's searching his way through now with what, lap 33 or 37, so 5 to go. The difference +1, as I like to think about it. Into Paddock Hill Bend, turning in a little bit more sharply than Modely's Kiko ahead. Neither of whom have been able to close the gap to Chris Round, who is, as it stands, bridging a bit of a gap and a battling potentially on the horizon between Kiko and Long.
Yep. See Kiko make a little bit of a rare mistake there, which she doesn't do towards the end of the race too often. And is it just because Brian's applying that serious amount of pressure here? I thought Mod was going to be trying to bring it to more so to Chris at this point, but she's going to worry about the Brian behind. And here we go. Here comes Brian. Not quite there, my friend. She'll go back onto the racing line, onto the grass, and she's into the fence. Hard impact.
Oh, no. Oh wow. Goodness me.
Wow.
Modely's Kiko. That is a spectacular way to end the race. We'll take another look as to what's happened.
She's
Comes back onto the racing line, and yeah, 2 wheels on is a passenger, and the car just doesn't turn. As soon as that happens, the car's not turning. Now it's rotating, because obviously it has to eventually, and now sideways into the barrier and hits it on a slight lip in the grass. So the car's lifted up, then hits the barrier, then rotates, and then does this. The beautiful slow-mo. Get whatever music you want over this. It would probably fit. and then she's just a passenger waiting for
the camera
it to
breaking.
finally land, and then the camera smashes itself, and she finds herself ending her run for the podium with a lack of 2 wheels, a lack of a rear wing, and, well, a lack of a race finish as well. At 34 of 37, about to conclude. David Holland about to start, 3 to go. 7 seconds clear of the pack, and once again, well on his way to victory.
Wow, that was certainly very, very entertaining. There goes another fastest lap there from David. So I'm not quite sure if we got the memo there for the message on the team radio, just saying there was a huge accident from Modelise Kiko, but she's okay, thankfully. I was going to almost cut the camera away like the obviously the real television directors do, because they don't want you to show anybody actually getting seriously hurt, you know, without clearing the footage first. And I was just naturally going, no, I can't put the camera on there because it could be something we don't want to show. But it's quite unusual, isn't it? Because I wanted to see if we could go on board real quick. We do have a bit of time. I just wanted to go back in slow-mo and have a look from on board her car, just to see what's happened with the steering here. So this is the thing. She's come back on to try to tuck back on the racing line. Is she turning the steering wheel? Yes, she is. So almost a full turn. So she was trying to respond to the corners you mentioned. And yeah, unfortunately at that point, you don't get much traction out there in the gravel. Especially that. So to come back on that one, I'd say she probably shouldn't have tried to go tuck back onto the racing line, right? Because it was too late to get back ahead. Probably could have just stayed on the inside there and just lifted off a little bit more to defend. I think it's easier when you're up here in the commentary box, isn't it? And she's back out on track, actually. How is that possible with that damage? Oh, fast repair. There you go.
Yeah, so they get 1 for the duration of the race, and then they can get themselves back on circuit. And Modelise Kiko is straight back to finding a way to maximise her result in this race, because it's just the driver she is. She always wants to get what she can, and she's having a good old fight with Dominic Angelicchio now for 7th place. And, well, with just... well, for them, yeah, that'll be the penultimate lap. The penultimate go-around, lap 36 of 37. A quick look at what's happened to Brian Long in his pursuit of Chris Round for the podium. A small mistake, but reacting to the car perfectly, bringing it back on circuit with little to no time loss.
Yep, there it is. So, and Mod then during that did get past Dominic, and let's have a look how she got that one done. Just on the exit from the final corner down the main straightaway. Bingo on a fight back. Charge again. You have to give it to her. She's definitely got the most overtakes done today, hasn't she?
Yep.
On track, and it's of course the white flag there from Barney, and this man, Mr. David Holland, will be the first to see Barney. And actually, we'll go back to live pictures, of course. We're not actually live. We'll show it right now. There's your timing, and he's got that 7.8 second gap there. So Mackenzie Roon kind of just, I think, settled back in there and just accepted this P2 with a ton of time to Chris Round in P3.
Yeah, it's been a comfortable race.
Cars stopped on track here, haven't we?
Have we?
There's 2 cars. There's the number 8 and the number...
Angelicchio.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, what's happened
Where
here?
are they? They're there. And Anthony. They've come together. That's a big accident. Ooh. We'll get back to that one, but because we don't want to miss Mr. Holland crossing the line again. Oh, some cars pulling off the side there.
Well, here he is.
Yeah.
David Holland carving his way through the field today. Well, he's not really had to do much of that. He started from the front and he's carved his way through all the back markers. The people in his rearview mirrors. David Holland, once again, his 4th win of the season. We tick past halfway in the Sim Racer for Simpletons Formula 3 Championship. And once more, it's David Holland who takes the top step and does it so in fantastic fashion here in Brands Hatch. 6.5 seconds clear of Mackenzie Roon, who comes across the line once again to minimise the damage in the championship. Chris Round, 36.5 seconds later, will join him on the podium with Brian Long just in behind. I mean, let's not get too far ahead of ourselves just yet. Still one more tricky corner left to go, and he's negotiated it nicely, keeping it well under the limit and well on the track. So Chris Round looking to have a pretty decent race up there in 3rd place, and, well, very impressive.
5 positions gained as well for Chris, so you'd be very happy with that one. And he will take it just a little bit further back down the background is Brian. Probably one of Brian's best results for the season. And this better give it away too. We haven't really shown too much of Robert here, but that's good because he's had a lonely race. 7 positions gained too, so it looks like he's pretty happy at the moment. And I would be too for the number 17 driver. Getting it done where you need to get it done. And pad up, the Norwegian driver. Well, if he was to only win the race, we'd have 2 Norwegians that we'd be casting on winning races, isn't it? But it was David Holland from the United States that did win this one. Here's Peter coming into P6. And Daniel out there, you'd be happy out there, mum, family, and everybody. He did finish the race in P8. But not the absolute best result that he wanted, but he did finish it. And he's good to go. Good old Daniel. Thank you very much for all the support out there. There are your race results, Zachary.
Well, 37 laps of racing. See once again David Holland take to the top step. Mackenzie Roon and Chris Round join him on the podium. Brian Long, a decent result there in 4th with Robert Ridgway, the top 5. Petter Vedding for 6th. And Model-E's Kiko, not the result she'd have wanted after previously being in a fight for the podium. Daniel Whitfield, a similar situation for him as well. Dominic Angelico, Anthony Zeich, the top 10 with Seth MacFarlane, Yoel Dutton and Guy Kial, all finishing over 5 laps behind the race winner of David Holland. We have got a couple of drivers to come and have a chat with us. Well, in usual fashion, we'll start with Model-E's Kiko because she's had a very up and down race, sometimes quite literally. It was a very poor start and then a really good recovery, and then it wasn't. And then it was again in the final moments, getting yourself back into 7th. It was a wild race for you, Mod. Oh, don't think we can hear her.
Oh, sorry about that. Hello.
She's here. There we go. Hello, hello.
Yeah, I was kind of banking on that one being my race for the season. I had pace. I didn't manage to keep the car pointing in the right way a lot, unfortunately. Yeah, it was. I've been practicing my starts. I had them nailed, and it was safe. And then I didn't do any of that and wheel span and killed everybody. Apologies for everyone behind me for that chaos. And then, yeah, and it was a pretty fun recovery until it all went horribly wrong, indeed.
Yeah, you flipped a number of times. Yeah, I mean, it was a good battle. Do you think you could have got the podium in the end? I mean, you were closing in on Chris, but it was just tricky. As soon as Brian Long got onto the scene, it was well, you had to focus forwards and backwards, didn't you?
Yeah, no, I think I had pace on Chris if he wasn't anywhere near me. But as soon as I got close to him, I don't know if I was miscalculating what the toe was like under braking or if I was just folding under pressure. I couldn't really tell, but either way, yeah, he had great pace. So well-deserved podium for him in the end.
Yeah, he did have a great pace. We're now just seeing your incident actually on the live stream. It was spectacular in its own right, but we'll very quickly forget Brands Hatch, I suppose. A week's time we'll go across the Atlantic once again to the Charlotte Roval, the only night race of the season as well. 40 laps. How do you rack up your chances?
Well, it's a fairly good race for me, good track for me. It's my birthday, so I demand a podium.
Of course, absolutely. Well, that'd be a great birthday present.
Birthday wish then may come true.
Yeah, well, I've got to work on it. But I do need everyone to just slow down a little bit. There's too many quick people. Other than that, we'll be fine. Now, I can't wait for the Roval. It's a good one.
It is indeed. Well, Mod, before we let you go, is there anyone you want to give a shout out to before we say goodbye to your birthday?
I think I want to just give a shout out to Guy, who lost a rear wing in the calamity that I caused. Sorry I ruined your race, mate, and I hope to see you out on track next time. Take care.
Stuff. Cheers, Mod. Thank you very much. Of course, not the race that she would have wanted in the end, but still a fantastic one nonetheless. Next up, we'll have a quick chat with Petter Vedding because similar to Mod, but quite an interesting race, it must be said, but in the end, a decent result.
Yeah, sure. It really was. I was figuring people were gonna crash a lot because it's, one of those tracks. So I was just keeping my head down, trying to just not crash. I could have gone faster, but maybe then I would have crashed too. So, I'm happy with the P6.
Yeah, good result, good points, and a tough race for everyone, it must be said. But speaking of tough races, a week's time we'll go to Charlotte Roval, the only night race of the season. 40 laps. We'll go back across the pond. I mean, what do you think as we head away into the second half of the season?
Oh man, I have no idea. I've been looking at some track guides for that one. Never driven it before, so it's going to be very interesting. I have no idea how that's going to go, to be honest. But I've had no idea so far, so I guess I'm in the same position as always.
That's true. Well, consistency is key, and we hope to see you maybe getting yourself inside the top 5 in a week's time. Petter, before we let you go, of course, is there anyone you want to shout out before you head off?
First, I'd like to shout out to my wife, always watching, always cheering me on. That's waving the Norwegian flag over there. And also a quick shout out to the US government, because there is an alien living among you guys. His name is David Holland, but his real name is Blitzblock Hyperspeed, I think. So we need to get him out of here. He's making us look really bad.
Yeah, that's true. He escaped Area 51 and he's jumped into a Formula 3 car. Who let him drive? Who gave him the license? It's disgusting. Absolutely not. But yeah, he's very quick. And 4 in 4, I think, so far this season. So, just Petter, get the practice in and go get him.
Yeah, maybe next year, but I'm going to chase him all I can. I even let David Whitfield by because I thought I was blue flagged, but he was blue flagged. So I got to work on some attention to detail, I think.
Yeah, well, get yourself up there, and we hope to see you having a good result in a week's time.
Absolutely. Thanks, guys.
Take care, mate. See you later. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Petter Vedding, 6th place here today, and next up we'll go for Chris round next up. Chris, welcome in. I think it's our first time getting acquainted together, so first off, lovely to meet you. Second of all, brilliant race. 3rd place, 5 places from your starting position, and a good battle along the way as well.
Thank you, kind of. Can you hear me?
Yes, all good.
Yeah, cool. Yeah, it was a bit of a spontaneous entry, to be honest. I had nothing to do, so I thought I'd give the F3 a go. And yeah, good result.
Yeah, not bad in the end. Good start, picking your way forward. It was a tough race in the end. I mean, consistency reigned supreme overall, but your best lap time was within a second of David Holland, which, trust me, is a very good achievement. And you flew the McLaren livery quite nicely and continued on that podium. Are you going to be joining us for the rest of the season?
I will be when I can. Yeah, he was really quick. I don't know if you guys caught it, but I absolutely binned it about 10 laps in. Spun it and just about saved it. I think I caused the guy behind me to crash.
Yeah, we saw that. Yeah, no worries.
Yeah, I don't know how I didn't end up in the wall, but yeah, it was a fun race, and yeah, I'll be back next week.
Awesome stuff. Well, how do you rack up your chances? Do you expect another podium at the Charlotte Roval?
Yeah, I don't think I'm going to be getting P1 or P2, but I think I'll certainly keep trying for P3.
Awesome stuff. Well, Chris, before we let you go, is there any shout-outs you want to be given to the YouTube chat?
No, I'm good. I'll see you all next week.
Awesome stuff. Take care, mate. See you soon. Bye-bye. Chris around then. 3rd place in the end here today. And finally, we'll get a chat with Mackenzie Roon. 2nd place, again, unfortunately, not quite been able to top David Holland just yet. But good news is you're getting closer.
Yeah, being able to see David on the last lap, I call that a win.
That's true.
Better than 20-second gap.
That does help, absolutely. And around a tight and twisty circuit like Brands Hatch as well means you had to have been at least a little bit close. I think it was about 6.5 seconds in the end. So it was there. The pace was only a couple of tenths or so a lap, and you kept with him for the opening sort of 10 laps or so of the race. Just the longevity. He's nailing every single lap.
Yeah, it's going to have to be an absolutely perfect race for anybody to beat him. He doesn't seem to make mistakes yet. So, but I mean, it's a lot of fun. He raises the bar and it pushes everybody, I think.
Also, just notice that you've got little reminders for yourself on the front of your car. The feed dogs and call your mum. I like that. Nice little touch to your livery. Very nice one as well. However, in a week's time, after you've fed the dogs and called your mum, we'll be heading to the Charlotte Roval, the only night race of the season. Do you think it's going to be another race in second, or are you confident maybe this could be the time you go for the win?
To be honest, I'm not that too familiar. I'm not too familiar with that track on this car. So put some practice laps in. I know it's pretty twisty, turny, so you never know what can happen. But I'll be fighting for the lead if I can.
Awesome stuff. That's the That's the confidence we like to hear from you. And, well, best of luck for the rest of the season. Before we let you go, is there any shout-outs you want to be given?
Hey, probably just to my mom. My mom.
Awesome stuff. Nice. I love that. Cool. Nice. Right. Take care, Mackenzie. We'll see you in a week's time when we battle it around at the Charlotte Roval.
Yep. See you guys.
See you soon. Take care. Bye-bye. Well, Biggles, what a race that was here at Brands Hatch. Very interesting, to be fair. Good fights up and down the field. A very tough one as well. Consistency was key.
Consistency is key, and the key to consistency is David Holland, isn't it? And you have to give it to Mackenzie Roon too. Both of them were very, very consistent. In fact, I think the only mistakes that we actually saw from David Holland were on that first lap. We got a little twirly-whirly out there, you can see there, and he got a little loosey-goosey on the rear end there, but they didn't make him into any off tracks that much. He still had it pointing in the right direction, still delivered the results for the 18 machine.
He did indeed. But unfortunately, ladies and gentlemen, that is going to bring an end to our coverage of the Sim Racing for Simpletons Formula 3 Championship. Season number 2, round 4 was brought to you live here from Brands Hatch. You can see the results there. Once again, David Holland able to take the top step for the 4th time in 4 rounds this season. We have rounded off the first half of our 8-week calendar. In a week's time, we'll head to Charlotte Roval before we go to the legendary Spa Watkins Glen and the new edition of Aragon for week 8. September 16th, we'll see the end of the season. But before we get too ahead of ourselves, make sure you have liked the stream, subscribed if you have enjoyed yourself even more, and if you want to keep up to date with all the sim racing action here at JP Broadcasting, make sure to give that bell a ding as well, so you get notified every single time we head live, because we've got every single discipline and series under the sun. You name it, and we've probably got it, so there's always a home for you here. My name has been Zach Sweeney. I've had Dean Biggles alongside me in the commentary booth, but until we see you next week for round 5 of this brilliant championship, it's a very warm goodbye.